Hello, I'm Rev Don Lewis, and we're here with Deborah Blake.
Hi.
And we're here at PantheaCon, and are you enjoying the convention?
Oh, I'm having a wonderful time. It's the first time that I've been, and it's just amazing. I want to live here.
What are you enjoying most?
Well, mostly being in a community of my peers. You know, I live in a small town in upstate New York, and we actually have a surprising number of pagans, but to have this many pagans all in one place, the energy is wonderful. Everybody is terrific. And also as a writer, the networking, I'm meeting other writers who I've read and really liked, and making good connections with people. I just found somebody to collaborate with. I just talked to the editor of Pangaea. It's just a blast. And fun, just fun.
We've been enjoying it a great deal ourselves. This morning they had the Pagan Fiction Award breakfast ceremony, and someone who is sitting on one of these two chairs won an award.
That would be me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Third place, not bad. The really amazing thing about it is that they're going to be putting out this anthology, which I will be in, and all of the other award winners. Basically, the 13 top stories will be in it. And this is the first book of pagan short fiction, and they're really hoping to be starting a trend. And I like to be at the beginning of trends. I think that's going to be great.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be out in, I believe they said October. It's being done jointly by Llewellyn and BBI Media, and it looks wonderful. I suggest everybody run out and get it, and not just because my story's in there.
But that doesn't hurt.
No, read mine first.
And now we have another book. The Circle, Coven, and Grove.
Yes, A Year of Magical Practice, which this is my first book from Llewellyn. My second book will be out in September of this year, called Everyday Witch A to Z, an amusing, inspiring, and informative guide to the wonderful world of witchcraft. And I was very excited when they let me keep my long subtitle until the 15th time I had to type it all out. And then I thought, whose bright idea was this? Why didn't I just say, a book? And that's just sort of a fun book of little essays and sidebars and bits and pieces of things. And it is, in fact, co-written by my black cat, Magick. So all the cat fans buy it for your cat.
It's amazing how many cats can use computers.
Well, what she does is she sits on my computer and she supervises me, and if I get it wrong, bad things happen.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Yeah, this book actually, A Year of Magical Practice, came about because I did my High Priestess dedication after my many years of being a regular old pagan, and started my own group, Blue Moon Circle, and went looking for a book that would give me sort of a cushion for that first year, you know, a year of rituals that I could fall back on if I couldn't think of anything, maybe some suggestions on how to start a group and how to administer a group, and there wasn't one. And I looked, and there were some books on covens, but they were mostly very dry, esoteric kind of things, and a whole lot of things about, well, you know, here's how you look for a coven, and here's what to avoid in the coven. You know, if they're asking you to have sex, that may be a bad thing, you know. And
Just possibly.
Yeah, possibly. It depends on the coven, I guess.
Well, I suppose that's true.
And so what happened was, after our first year of practicing as a group, I suddenly was given this idea to write that year worth of new moons and full moons and holiday practice with an introduction about, you know, how to do it and, you know, why to do it. And that became Circle, Coven, and Grove, A Year of Magical Practice. The interesting thing about it for me is that it was essentially written for group practice, and I have had so many solitaries come up and say, this is my go-to book now. And I think part of that is because I wrote it to be very conversational. What I said was, it's like sitting across the table from your friendly neighborhood high priestess over a cup of tea and saying, well, you know, I had this question. And if you don't happen to have a friendly neighborhood high priestess, then you can get the book, and you've got me. And in fact, I have, you know, a website where people can ask me questions and things like that. Because I think it's important, especially now that so many of us are eclectics and we're not coming from a degree system. I mean, I did do a year and a day study for my high priestess, but it was not the sort of standard and traditional kind. It was my high priestess at the time said, all right, you're going to start leading our rituals. Now you're going to do a few community rituals, read these books you haven't read before. And when I think you're ready, I'll tell you. So, I thought it was a really good idea to have something like this, especially because not everybody can write rituals. People would come to my rituals and they'd say, oh, that was such a great ritual. You do such a good job with the rituals and spells. And I'd go, because for me, it's not a big deal. It comes very easily. My background is psychology, theater, and English education, which pretty much spells high priestess to me, all of those things. But if you're not a person who's comfortable writing, and if you have a whole group of people, in Blue Moon Circle, I'm the only one who really is comfortable writing rituals. And so that thought hit me in the shower, actually, one day. And I thought, wow, I maybe should do something about that. And then the gods kicked my butt until I did it.
It's interesting because you make a point. I remarked on this earlier before we were filming, that you wrote the book you wanted to read. And I've heard that from a number of people that we've been interviewing, both on this occasion and others. But the other point that you make that I've heard from many people is that once the gods have shown you, until you do it, they kind of keep whacking you.
Absolutely. Well, and it was very interesting the way this particular group, this particular book came into being, because I'm a person who's been writing all of my life but never finished anything. I wrote some short stories and things, but I have 3 novels in the works or whatever. And what happened was I wrote my outline and I sent in my 4 sample chapters to Llewellyn because that's who I wanted first. And it said in their online instructions, in 3 to 6 months you'll hear back, which is pretty standard. And 2 weeks later, I got a note that said we would like to see the rest of the book. There was no rest of the book. It didn't exist. I had some of the rituals that were used, they were in my computer, but they weren't in that form. There were no chapter introductions. There was nothing. And I thought, being the innocent that I was, oh my God, they really love this book. I need to get it to them right away. And I also thought, what if somebody else also sees this lack and writes this book? So I wrote the rest of the book in 5 weeks, which is insane. That's just crazy. And then the 3 to 6 months happened, and I got my answer back. And it happened that the book landed on the desk of Alicia Gallo, who is the editor there, when she just got the job, and she had what she referred to as an eerily empty desk. And so it really was a matter of timing, and I don't believe that was an accident. I think the gods knew that if I didn't really get that push, I wouldn't finish this one either. And the interesting thing is that now that I finished this one, of course, I no longer have that excuse. And so the second one was written, the third one is partially done, and I've also written a novel. And, that was, I think they knew that was what it would take for me to do the work. Now they're not so helpful. Now they're like, okay, we gave you your push, you're on your own, which is fine.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, you said you have a website.
I actually have a few websites. www.deborahblakehps.com. That's my sort of author website. And there's a blog there, and there's some excerpts from the book. So if you're curious
Wonderful.
and you don't want to go out and buy it, which I understand, Ellen Dugan said to me, oh, I saw that and that looked neat, and I went to Llewellyn's site to see if they had excerpts, and they didn't. And I said, oh, well, here you go. And then I gave her one. She's Ellen Dugan.
Yes.
And we also have a Blue Moon Circle site, which is bluemooncircle.net. And that was actually our first site. This book was supposed to be called Blue Moon Circle's Magical Year. And Llewellyn thought, they'll think it just applies to Blue Moon Circle. He said, well, I think they're smart enough to figure that out. But I actually very much like this.
It's a nice title.
Yeah. Well, and I think book 4
It's still blue.
Yes, they did a great cover. I love this cover. But I think book 4 will be Circle, Coven, Grove, and Solitary. Because of the great feedback that I got from the solitaries, I think what I'll do is I will add, instead of making them slightly alter some of the rituals themselves, I'll put them in there the new moons and full moons can be done almost exactly as they're written if you're a solitary, but some of the bigger holiday ones you have to adapt a little bit, and so I'll do that. And there's sections at the end of each chapter where you can write down what you've done, because my suggestion is that you start with this, and that by the time you get to your second year, you're either doing your own things or you're adapting this, that sort of thing. So yeah. Oh, and I also am on MySpace as also Deborah Blake HPS, because they made me at LWL, and Jen, the publicist, said you have to get yourself out there, and that was one of the interesting parts of my journey as an author. I thought as an author you could sit at home and write books, which is I'm a person other than in witchcraft. I am essentially a solitary person. I'm not a solitary witch, which shocked the heck out of me. I really didn't know, but yeah, I write, I make jewelry, I do all of these other solitary pursuits, and it turns out as an author you have to come to PantheaCon and talk to everybody, and you have to go out to other things, and you have to put yourself out online and talk to people. And I'm always happy to talk to people. I actually love getting letters from people who have read my book, hopefully saying that they really loved it and got a lot out of it. But even the people who said, you got that part a little bit wrong, that means that the next time in the next book I won't get it a little bit wrong. And as long as it's couched in a pleasant way, I don't mind having people say, I wished you had done this, or whatever, because I think the whole thing is...
It's a wonderful source of inspiration.
Yeah, and it's a learning process. It's all a learning process. Just because I'm a high priestess and an author doesn't give me any illusions that I know that much more than anybody else. I know more than some people in some areas. There are lots of areas in which I know very little.
Well, after PantheaCon, where will you next be appearing?
My house. I don't have a lot of definite things. I know that at the end of October of this year, I will be at the New York Witch Festival in Long Island. Very good. I was invited to come do that, which will be a lot of fun, and I am dragging my entire group with me. Oh, wonderful. I'm going to have an entourage. So that will be fun. Last year I did the Finger Lakes Pagan Pride Day, and I probably will do that again this year, because they were wonderful, and have they literally, we got home and there was an email saying please come back next year. We had so much fun. And that was my first real author appearance, so it was really a blast, and everybody was pleasant. So and I will probably be adding things over the course of the year. I'm not going to do a lot of traveling. I want to write, and I have a real job. I manage an artists cooperative with 50 artists, and that takes a certain amount of juggling. And so, to some extent, until I sell enough books that I can write full time, I have to also live my life. Of course. And I have a circle to run, which also takes a lot of time and energy. But I suspect over the course of the year, and if people have places they want me to go, they can certainly write me and say, we live in wherever, please come. I keep hearing about, what is it, Starwood? Starwood
is quite a festival.
Yes, which, I've heard is a fun one, so I may try.
Unless it rains.
I'm in upstate New York. I always plan for rain. I think...
It's fun even when it rains.
Yeah,
you just have to be prepared to swim a little bit.
The mud factor.
Squishwood.
Squishwood.
But you would enjoy it, I'm sure. Well, thank you very much for taking this time with us. It's been a wonderful interview.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Well, unfortunately, I'm leaving soon. I'm leaving this afternoon, actually, to visit family that also lives on this coast. But it has been a transcendent experience.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode and that we'll see you again next time. Until then, may you blessed be.